Hi, I'm Michelle Hodkin, and I am being interviewed by the lovely writer of Stay Bookish.
Hi Michelle.
Hi, it's nice to meet you.
It's nice to meet you too. I'm a huge fan of your books, and I'm so excited to be chatting with you today.
I'm so excited to be chatting with you.
Thank you so much for visiting us here in the Philippines.
I am so grateful that Fully Booked brought me here, and I'm even more grateful that my readers here were the ones who asked them to bring me here. I'm just having the most incredible time. I don't really want to leave. So I've told them that already. I'd really like to stay if only my pets weren't in Brooklyn.
Oh yes, your pets. You must miss them.
I do miss them.
They're adorable.
Thank you very much.
What has been your favorite thing about your job so far?
Oh my God, meeting the readers, like that is, that's been overwhelming for me. There have been, readers who, are shaking and everything, and it's like, I'm just as nervous because I'm so excited to meet them, and meeting, especially teenagers who connected with something that I made in such a strong way, makes me feel like I'm meeting old friends. So it's been really the most extraordinary experience, just completely magical so far.
Who was the character you enjoyed writing the most?
It's so hard to say because it's like children, right? Like you can't really choose a favorite. And I used to say it was Jamie because he's got my sense of humor and has done a lot of crazy things that I did when I was a teenager. But I think now that I'm finally out of Mara's head, I think Mara I probably enjoyed writing the most. She's really complicated. It wasn't always easy to do. It was sort of special, just going to the dark places that she went and making choices for her that, I knew she would make, but that I would never make myself. And it was cool to have such a different experience.
So, which book was the toughest to write?
Retribution, yeah. Of course, the toughest one to write is always usually the one I'm working on. That's what it feels like. But in hindsight, it was definitely Retribution because I always knew what the ending of the trilogy was going to be from the very beginning. I knew where Mara was going to end up as a person, and the plot points, the elements of unbecoming and evolution grew out of that. I actually sort of worked backwards from knowing the end and then thought, well, what would a teenage girl have to go through in order to end up here? And so answering that question was how I came up with, storylines for the other two books. And so, of course, in the 5 years that I was working on the trilogy, things changed a lot. I wrote the ending in August 2009 before I'd even had an agent, before I'd had an editor. And then once you have an agent, you revise. And then once you have an editor, you revise. And then you revise again. And then you revise again. And then, of course, the second book, same process. So I had to sort of reverse engineer a lot of threads that were dangling from the first book and the second book to make sure that the ending that I still had in mind would fit. And that was really challenging. I wanted to make sure it was satisfying for readers, but still did what I needed to do for the story.
It was really satisfying.
Thank you. That makes me so happy.
Mind-blowing.
Thank you. Like, sigh of relief. It's terrifying when you put something out there that people are going to read because you worry about disappointing them, or I worry about disappointing my readers. I think of you guys and realize that, my readers are invested in the characters I've made, and I don't take that responsibility lightly. I, of course, have to honor the story and write what's true to my characters, but I hear what you guys say on Twitter and on Tumblr.
Do you read reviews?
And on Facebook. I don't anymore. I used to, and I'm grateful to people who write them, but there are so many, it's impossible to sort of escape the voices already, that doing that just has proved to not be helpful in any way. But I'm still aware of what readers want, and I want to make you guys happy as much as I can. So it's definitely scary to put it out there. So I'm happy you enjoyed it.
Did any scene in the books make you laugh out loud or tear up while you were writing?
Yeah, I don't know how spoilery I can be. Can I be spoilery in this video? Okay, alright. cried while I was writing the scene in Evolution where Mara is post-encounter with Jude and has sort of been involuntarily committed to Horizons, and she's just so frustrated with the fact that she is telling the truth and no one believes her. And when I was thinking about what the worst thing that I could possibly do to a character, what would be the most terrifying thing to experience, it was that. Monsters or whatever. That's scary, but it's external. If you're telling the truth about having been abused or going through something difficult in school, and you're not believed by the people who are supposed to care about you and protect you, who think they are caring about you and protecting you, that level of frustration, I can only imagine, would be just such a terrible thing to experience. And the scene that made me laugh out loud is a scene that actually, in a way, it got cut. It got cut from Retribution, so now it's going to sound really inappropriate. But the scene where they're at the rest stop, and with Stella and Jamie, and Stella is attacked, and Mara steps in to try and help her, and the man who is sexually assaulting Stella, or about to, Mara dispatches him in short order. And I originally had, the line was, she took his keys and his gun and his tongue, and then she goes about her business. And I just thought that that was so funny, because it's sort of like, she doesn't even really realize she's doing it. It's just like very, very quick. And then in the following scene, she goes back to the truck. She's covered in blood, in her, Welcome to the Sunshine State t-shirt, and her, I Love Florida boxers. And I just thought that was so funny. And then she gets into the cab of the truck, and Stella asks for the keys, and Mara tosses her the keys, but in the original scene, she actually tosses her the tongue.
Oh,
and so, well, I'm glad you said so, but she tosses her the tongue, and then Stella freaks out, and then Mara realizes, and she's like, shit, wrong pocket. And so I loved that scene, but my editor and one of my readers felt very strongly that it was too much at that early point in the novel. Mara had already butchered Dr. Kells and cut out the eye of Wayne, who was alive. So they felt that, like, taking yet another bodily souvenir from someone was probably too much. So I cut it, but it just made me laugh so much because I have such a dark sense of humor.
Thank you for sharing that with us. It's fun to hear about. How were you able to develop the romance between Noah and Mara? And if you were to choose a theme song for them, what would it be?
Developing the romance, I think when you're a writer, at least the way I work is I try to, I think of things that I love, and I just try to put them all in my books. I have a file, like, it's actually called Stuff I Like. And, one of the things that I love the most is the big returns trope, Beatrice and Benedict from Much Ado About Nothing. I knew I wanted them to have this sort of Hepburn-Tracy banter going back and forth between them, where they might act like they hate each other, but they're both they're dancing around the inevitable. And so I really thought about that. But on a deeper level, I'd mentioned before that I thought about, I knew how Mara was going to end up. I knew the person she was going to be at the end of the trilogy, and worked backwards from there. How would a otherwise normal teenage girl get to this place? That's also how I created Noah, is thinking, what kind of boy would be in love with a girl who becomes this person? What would he have to be like? And in answering those questions, Noah sprang up. In terms of theme song, it's funny, I have a lot of them. I have a little playlist that's like Mara and Noah theme songs. One of them is the Chris Isaak "Baby Did a Bad Bad Thing." It's old. There's another one that's not old that I only discovered like a year ago, but I love it so much. It's by Hodkin, who is a rapper, but like a super nerdy rapper, and it's called Sloppy Seconds. And it's just about these, two sort of people who've been through a lot of stuff, and they kind of just figure out they're perfect for each other anyway, even though they're messes. And gosh, there are a lot. I should probably post them.
Okay, you should.
I'm so grateful for all of your support and the outpouring of love and excitement for the trilogy, and I can't wait to show you what's coming from me next.
Victims of the night, the chemical, physical